So you've seen the title of this video and you're wondering, why the heck is everyone talking about Linux at the moment? Well, I have one thing to thank for that, and that is my Steam Deck. If it was not for this device, I would not be gaming on Linux right now. And yeah, I'm done with Windows. That's me, finito. No Windows devices in my house. I'm full on Linux gaming. I'm running Bazzite on my machine over here, which you can see. Yeah, let me get into why I made this decision, why I think this is one of the best choices for a lot of people out there, especially if you have modest hardware. And let's get into why I think Linux is probably the future for a lot of people. So let's go back a little bit. If you've ever used Windows at any point in your life, you may have had good experiences. I've had good experiences with Windows back in the day. I used to love the platform. I used it for editing every single day. But since I made the switch to Mac for specifically work-related tasks, I'm in a bit of a privileged position. So I have a gaming PC that I no longer need to edit with. I never really need to do anything in terms of like work-related stuff with it. So I just ran a really clean Windows 10 build, switched to Windows 11 and ran most of my games with no major issues. This is where that major issues is a little bit of a contentious point. Basically, Windows is one of those pieces of software which bloats itself over time because it has lots of libraries in there that allows you to do things that other OSs, well, they're not going to support things going back potentially decades. That's a great thing for usability, it's great for plug and play, it's great for you if you want to play some older titles out there and not have compatibility issues. I love that. That was one of the greatest things about Windows. My biggest problem with Windows 11 when making that switch though was that there's just so much crud thrown in for no good measure. It's not a bad looking platform. It basically, all of these mobile and desktop operating systems almost work the same at this point in time anyway. I didn't have a problem with that. For me, it was a case of updates breaking things on my devices. So for instance, I would install a driver update for the graphics card, something wouldn't work, be that Adobe Premiere Pro, all that kind of stuff. I just thought, no, I had enough. Let's make a switch. Let's effectively separate my work and play into two separate sections. Then I got the Steam Deck not that long ago. For me, the Steam Deck has changed my perception of what a PC or a handheld PC is, and it doesn't necessarily need Windows in that equation. So after spending an inordinate amount of time playing my Steam Deck, I was enamored with this experience and I wanted something similar on my gaming PC. Now it was completely free of work-related tasks. I could play with it and do whatever I wanted. So having experienced lots of issues with games and drivers not working the way I wanted them to, I just said to hell with it. We don't care about kernel level anti-cheat anymore. Apex Legends, that's out the window. That was my favorite game for a long period of time and the only thing that really kept me on Windows on my desktop gaming PC. I have an AMD build. I went out and looked at other options and distros that could go out and build. It seemed to me like Bazzite was the best option. A lot of you are going to go down into the comment section and say, no, there are better options out there, but for me, Bazzite seems to work absolutely perfectly. So I haven't got any footage of me actually doing this. I just did it on a whim one day and just went and put Bazzite on my gaming PC, and here we are nearly 2 months later. I'm having a great time and I cannot recommend it highly enough. This is probably one of the simplest. It's effectively set up for gaming. You can download a tool to do this. You just put it into the back of your PC or a USB stick, put it into the front of your front ports if they're working. Load it up, install it like you would Windows. It just does everything for you. Yes, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but if you're like me and you're not going to do anything else, if you don't need certain applications, just go with this. This is probably one of the most seamless experiences I've had in terms of gaming over the past 20 years, easily. So there are a few pitfalls here that I think you need to be aware of if you are willing to make the switch like I have. You need to make sure that you're not using certain desktop platforms like Adobe software, all those kind of things. You can have to do some workarounds. DaVinci Resolve is available if you're a video editor, but I haven't tested it. Again, I don't intend to do anything but game on this machine. But in terms of just throwing on Steam, throwing on Discord, having Chrome or another browser, I use YouTube Music for my music streaming options. So this is a really flat, clean, super simple build, really basic. My PC is pretty modest. I have an AMD 3900X, which is an old 12-core CPU, which is about 5 years old now. I have a 7800 XT, which I upgraded to just a couple of years ago. And for the most part, it's a pretty simple build. There's nothing really special going on here, but I cannot stress highly enough how clean the gaming taking from Windows and going to a Linux has been for me. I've been playing lots of these like friend slot games, think Repo, think Lethal Company, all that kind of stuff. They run like a dream. There are some times where I get some performance dips, but you can just make a change to the Proton option that you're using, and that can really give you some performance lifts. And for the most part, nearly every single game that I want to play is working perfectly here on Linux. Yes, there are a few games that I can't play, like Apex Legends, but for the most part, I cannot complain at all. I think if you're like me and you're wondering why so many people on YouTube are talking about Linux at this point in time, it probably is because of devices like the Steam Deck. This can change your perception of what is available and why certain things work the way they do. You kind of question things. Why does Windows need to have so much access to stuff? Why does it need to be constantly online all the time? And getting away from that and getting away from the trappings of these big companies is a really nice thing to kind of free yourself from. That said, I am using Steam, so I guess I'm part of the problem. Steam do definitely have a stranglehold over gaming. And of course, I'm glazing a device here which is made by a corporation, but I think sometimes you have to look at it and try and work out what's right for you and what's going to work for you. If you are a Windows person, you do have certain things that you need to use in Windows. This is definitely not going to work for you, and I completely understand that. But if you are someone who just wants a clean gaming experience, you're willing to maybe experiment with your gaming PC, you're happy to potentially lose some files. Luckily, this is just a gaming PC for me. I don't do anything else on it. I play games with my friends, I chat on Discord, I browse the internet. That's all I need from a gaming PC. And I understand if it's your one and only machine, it might be better to look at something like dual booting. But in terms of the experience, you can see some of the benchmarkings that I've seen on here are very, very impressive. They might not necessarily match some of the best out there in terms of machines, but I do sometimes think that Windows holds back certain titles because there is so much going on in the background that starts to eat and seep at your system resources that you may have a better experience here. And I do think that is one thing that has worked well for me with my gaming PC. I'm able to plug and play things very, very easily because of the way that Bazzite is built on Fedora to effectively make things work instantly. Linux seems to be really a lot more intuitive than when I first tried it on a netbook almost 20 years ago. And I just love the experience. I'm loving learning a new operating system that I'm not used to, learning how to troubleshoot things correctly. Granted, there hasn't been much of that, to be completely honest with you. I'm excited to see what happens with Linux moving forward, and I do hope that this becomes a more let's just say a major player in terms of like the desktop OS paradigm. We need more competition in this space. Microsoft has had too much control over how we play games on our PCs. And hopefully in the next few years, we'll start to see more game developers jump on board, support Linux right out of the gate. And I do think the Steam Deck, going back to this again, is one of the reasons and the catalyst why so many people like myself are willing to make this switch. It's proven that you don't necessarily need the highest end internals to have a good experience. You don't necessarily need to have every single game ad infinitum supported by your platform that you're playing on. Think about it. I have a Switch. I have a Switch 2. There are games that I can play there that I can't play anywhere else. It's absolutely fine that they're siloed away and they're their own experiences. I think this might be something that changes with gaming PCs and gaming in general in the next 5 to 10 years. And hopefully, as more people pick up Linux as an option, Linux is going to be a premier gaming solution for lots of you out there. I think if you are looking at this and you're going to potentially build a PC in the next few months, definitely consider taking Linux on as your main OS of choice. Sure, you can dual boot Windows, but that feels like a little bit of a crutch. I'm all in. I'm fully in on Linux right now, from my gaming handhelds to the PC behind me. I am a Linux gamer, full stop.